All right, next we're going to do the story called Long Way Home. Let's go to our questions first, which start on page 63. In the beginning of the story, Mark is angry with Chuck because Chuck cheated him out of his allowance. Chuck asked Mark to go on a really tough hike. Chuck had a fight with him, or Chuck wouldn't let Mark go with his friends. So, we're looking at the beginning of the story. Mark is angry with Chuck, and we want to know why. The story takes place in Montana, Colorado, Hawaii, or Alaska. We're looking for the setting of the story. On the trail, Mark is frightened by a timber wolf, a black bear, rattlesnake, or wild pig. What is Mark frightened by? When Mark slips off the trail, he is stopped from sliding down the mountain when he grabs a vine, his backpack catches on a tree root, he grabs onto a rock, none of the above. So he stopped from sliding when what stops him? The hikers go down into the valley because they are tired of walking on the trail. The trail goes into the valley. It is almost dark and they want to make camp. Its stream in the valley will lead them to the coast. The hikers go down the valley. Why? Question 6. Leo and Juma are Mark's brothers, Mark's friends, Chuck's friends, or park rangers. I'm just going to highlight their names, Leo and Juma, and put who. In the valley, the hikers cannot get past a fallen tree, wild pigs, a lost city, none of the above. What can they not get past? Chuck tells the other hikers they have to get out of the valley because rain upstream could cause the valley to flood. It is getting too dark to see. It is too cold in the valley. They are about to be attacked by wild pigs. So they have to get out. Why? Mark loses his shoes because Leo steals them. He forgets them at the campsite. The water rips them off his feet, or none of the above. How does he lose his shoes? The hikers are rescued by a Boy Scout troop, park rangers, college students on a field trip, none of the above. Rescued by who? Okay, now that we've gone through the questions, we can start reading. Long Way Home, Section 1. Find out what Mark's near miss with a wild pig. How did I ever let Chuck talk me into this? Mark said angrily to himself. He glared at his brother's back. They were walking along a high mountain trail. Mud sucked at Mark's shoes with each step he took. His backpack felt like it was filled with rocks. Mark remembered that his big brother had told him 2 weeks ago. It's going to be great, Chuck said. 2 days of hiking in the mountains. Leo and Juma will come with us. We'll camp overnight. We'll get to see a part of Hawaii we don't see living in Honolulu. All right, I'm going to highlight the very first sentence. How did I ever let Chuck talk me into this? Because Mark said it with anger. And I'm going to make a little angry face to remember he's angry. The first hour had been fun. The last 7 hours had been awful. They had only one short stop for lunch, thanks to Leo. Leo had said, "We must get over this trail by dark." "How can you even call this a trail? It's more like a path for pigs," said Mark. So Mark is not happy. "There are wild pigs all over this place in these mountains," said Leo, sounding like an expert. "Sometimes they attack hikers." Mark sighed and looked at the trail. All along it were pig wallows. The wallows were like huge mud puddles. Once Mark stepped into one of the pig wallows, and his feet sank into the mud up to his knees. That would make me mad, too. Wild pigs aren't as scary as this trail you picked out, Leo, said Juma. This drop-off could get us killed. On the right side of the trail, there was a drop straight down the side of the mountain. Juma added, looking back at Mark, just be careful, okay? I'm going to put more bad news, because there seems to be a lot of bad things about this. The first bad thing is the pigs. The second bad thing is the drop-off. I'm sure there's more to come. There's another trail going off to the left, said Chuck. Maybe that would be easier hiking. They headed toward it. As Mark crossed the trail, he heard a sound like the bark of an angry dog. It was a huge black and gray pig. Mark, look out, yelled Chuck. The pig was racing towards him. Its mouth was open, and Mark could see the pig's sharp brown teeth. Without thinking, Mark jumped to his right. The pig ran past and kept on going. Mark lost his footing. He felt himself starting to slip down the mountainside, but his backpack got caught on a tree root. Chuck ran up and helped Mark pull himself onto the trail. I'm going to write a combo of number 1 and number 2 of those reasons why he was scared. The pigs came after him, and he went down that drop-off. So the pig was racing toward him. Mark jumped to his right, lost his footing, started to slip down the mountainside, but the backpack got caught on a tree root. Are you okay? Chuck asked him. I'm fine, Mark gasped, but I thought I was going to be that pig's next meal. Juma laughed. You're not very big, kid. The pig decided you wouldn't make much of a snack. The sun was starting to sink, and the shadows were growing longer across the trail. Leo said, we have to keep going. No, said Chuck. We're not where we are supposed to be, but I think it's time to stop for the night. Mark mumbled thankfully. I won't argue with that. So we're going to put stop. This is where they decided to stop. So based off of what we read, we can answer a couple of our questions. We can answer number 1, why Mark is angry. We can answer, can we answer number 2? Let's see. Yep, we can answer number 2, where they're hiking. We can answer number 3, what made Mark frightened. We can answer number 4, and how Mark stopped falling. And now we're on section 2 to find out why the hikers leave the trail. They're leaving the trail. Don't ever leave a trail when you're hiking, please. The trails are there for a reason. When Mark awoke the next morning, he said eagerly, we are going to be home by noon, right? Yes, Chuck replied. We should make it back to the car in about an hour. 5 hours later, Mark was thinking of the ways he could get revenge on his brother for inviting him on the trip. The group was lost. The trail that Leo had picked that morning seemed to be heading nowhere. Looking over the cliff, Mark could see the road that ran along the coast. If they could get down there, they could probably get help to get back to their car. But they had been looking for a trail heading to the road for hours. Mark was angry, and he had to admit to himself a little scared too. So I'm going to highlight that he's angry and scared. We should make it in an hour. Then we're at 5 hours later. So they are clearly lost. Look, this valley heads east, Leo said. Why don't we follow it out to the road? But there's no trail, Juma protested. Leo said that's okay. At the bottom of the valley there's a stream. We can follow it along the way to the coast. Following the water trail. Pretty smart. Another 3 hours went by. Mark trudged behind the older boys, grumbling. Well, this was a great idea. Finally, the boys found themselves standing near the top of a 100-foot waterfall. It had started to rain, and everyone was soaking wet and cold. What are we going to do now? Chuck asked the others. Leo said, we have a rope. We could use it to climb down the waterfall. Chuck looked at Leo. Are you crazy? We could get killed trying to do that. Juma said, we have to try and climb up to the ridge. Then we'll be able to see where we are, and we have to hurry. See those storm clouds? He pointed at the big black clouds rolling towards them. They heard the crash of thunder. Storm coming, And here they're even more lost. So based on this information, we can answer a couple more questions. We can answer question number 5. We can answer question number 6. We can answer question number 7. And that's it. So let's go ahead and keep reading section 3. Find out how Mark loses his shoes. We have to get out of here. Those clouds mean it's been raining upstream, Chuck shouted. This valley could flood any minute. We could be washed away. So bad things here. Raining upstream, the valley could flood, and they would be washed away. Yikes. They started scrambling up the side of the valley, pulling themselves from bush to bush. Mark heard a rumbling sound and looked around. His mouth went dry. A wall of water was moving through the valley like a herd of stampeding horses. Climb faster, Chuck yelled. We have to... That's weird. We have to, and then Mark's backpack was slowing him down. So it doesn't really finish the sentence. So it's more like we have to. Uh-oh, what's going on? His mouth went dry. That usually means that you're scared when your mouth goes dry. Water was moving through the valley. And it was moving quick, like a stampeding horse, which means that the water was rising. Mark's backpack was slowing him down. He dropped it off his back and kept climbing. Suddenly, Mark felt the water smash against his legs. The rush current was pulling him down. Help, he yelled. Someone grabbed his shirt and lifted him up. It was Chuck, pulling him out of the water. When Mark looked down, he saw that the water had ripped his shoes right off his feet. All right, the current was pulling him down. Chuck pulled him out. The water had ripped his shoes right off. The 4 hikers kept climbing until they made it to safety. Just as Mark climbed onto the ridge, he heard the thump-thump of a helicopter. Juma began waving his arms. He shouted, "It's a fire department helicopter. The lightning from the storm must have started a fire somewhere." Oh, so you got a flood and a fire now. The red helicopter landed 20 yards away. Mark looked at it with relief. It's a good thing. I didn't know how I was going to walk out of here without any shoes. When they were safely in the helicopter, Mark said to his brother, "Thanks, Chuck. I guess it makes us even." "What do you mean?" asked Chuck. Mark replied, "I was thinking about strangling you for asking me on this trip, but since you saved my life, I guess I won't." Chuck laughed. "Gee, thanks. You are so kind, Mark." Mark forgives Chuck. So now you can answer the rest of the questions. For number 3, you can find the answer to number 8, 9, and 10. Have a good day.